Hey everyone! So, first of all, if you haven't played Jedi Fallen Order yet, you are missing out on an incredible game, and even for the untrained ear, it's easy to recognize that the music for this game is ambitious and incredible. But what I want to talk about in particular today is the music that plays while you ascend the Tree of Origin on Kashyyyk, because there is something magical happening here. This is Star Wars Music Analysis.
Do it.
So, there are plenty of examples of music that deal with the concept of motion and direction, and even with the idea of infinite ascension. One of the best examples that I can think of is Ligeti's piano etude, The Devil's Staircase, which I'll put a link to in the description below. In fact, this concept inspired one of my most recent compositions entitled Rise, that I'll be posting soon on my other YouTube channel. So, if you haven't already, consider subscribing to it as well to see all of my original music with visuals added. The link to that channel will be in the description below as well. But to get back to the Tree of Origin, as we climb the tree, the music gives us the distinct feeling that it's climbing along with us, and I remember being blown away by how incredible and detailed the score is for this game in this moment. I mean, this really went above and beyond what we normally consider for video game music, and I think it's going to be just the beginning of everything that is yet to come. But why do we have the sensation that the music is rising as well? There are a few important aspects that are giving us this feeling. Let's start with the chords themselves. We begin by hearing strings, horns, and voices create this chord. If you study pop harmony, you'd know it likely as a B-flat major over A. But in classical terms, this would be a B-flat major 7 chord in third inversion. I want to focus on this version because when we just listen to a major 7 chord, like this drone, we hear that top note clearly wants to resolve up. So, by giving us this chord, our ears immediately are drawn to something that we hear consciously or unconsciously wanting to move upwards. Since that 7th is now in the bass, our ear is drawn to it in a slightly different way. It's more subtle now, but can still give us that sensation. The chord holds for a bit, but the bass finally drops instead of moving up, which means that we didn't get a resolution, and therefore the tension and the desire to hear it move somewhere else is still there. We move to another major 7 chord, this time the G major 7, and again we have that subtle desire to hear the 7th of the chord, now in F sharp, resolve upwards. Later an E is also added to this chord, which ends up adding more dissonance and tension while changing the overall root of the chord. Eventually, we climactically move to a B-flat minor major 7 chord, similar to our first chord, but this time it's in root position and it's minor with the B-flat in the bass. This means it will feel more stable to us and act at least to some extent as a resolution here. But with the less noticeable major 7th of A still present in the chord, our ears still want some sort of upward resolution. The sounds of the instruments help point our ears toward the heavens as well. While the first chord begins with strings and horns, the later instruments like a glockenspiel, clarinet, and piccolo all have very high registers that still feel relatively higher to any other instruments that we would hear. So we get the sense that we're not looking up like the character is, but listening up to these higher pitched instruments. The high violins take the melodic line, which I'll discuss in a moment, but we also have a harp which is constantly moving from its lower register into its higher register with glissandi, again giving us a physically upward trajectory to the music. The melody itself is the truly astonishing part about this piece though. Anyone who has ever tried to create the illusion of constant upward motion knows that there also needs to be downward motion in order to contrast the movement and give room for the ascent. Think about when you jump. What do you do first? You crouch or lower yourself in order to get more spring. The same is true of music. The first motion is upwards, but then the link comes right back down. Now, since we begin on a downbeat with the first note, this is what feels like our starting point though. So even as we move down to it again, it doesn't feel like we've come down as much as simply reset for another climb. What's more are how the notes of the melody interact with the harmony. The violins begin by shifting between a C sharp or D flat and a D natural. This shift is changing the way that we perceive the actual harmony as well, since it's the third of the chord. As it raises, the chord changes from minor to major, and so the entire harmony feels like it's raising. This pattern continues several times before another violin line enters, this time beginning on an F sharp, which feels like the fifth of the chord has been raised. The clarinet had already been playing with this sound in its earlier trill and arpeggiated line, but now we hear it clearly in the violins, which continue from here to move up. Notice as well how this line actually starts lower than the previous violin part in order to have more room for ascent. Many of the intervals in this line end up being half steps, giving the sensation that we are hearing leading tones constantly creeping up and resolving up. But since they don't always move to notes of the chord, the tension and need for further resolutions and movement continues. Eventually, a pattern emerges where the lines move up a half step, followed by a whole step, or a whole step, followed by a half step, almost alluding to an octatonic scale. But then it resets one step higher than where it began last. The notes always hold over the downbeat of the measure as well, so we never feel like we've arrived anywhere with a firm landing, and the line continues moving upward until we reach that B flat minor major chord, and the melody is still teetering from a half step below the third and then moving up to the actual third of the chord. By avoiding chord tones on the strong beats, the music can freely move through them and avoid the feeling that we've arrived at any point. After this moment, the music resets and goes through another cycle, but the concept remains the same. Lift to another dissonance and continue ascending patterns of half and whole steps while bright, high-pitched instruments dance around like the leaves and creatures in the trees. To me, this is the most amazing and magical moment that I've ever experienced musically within a video game, and I actually had to stop and just listen the first time I heard it. Unfortunately, the entire cue is only about 2.5 minutes, and then the music stops in this area, which is usually plenty of time to climb this section, but I'd love to know what you all think. Had you noticed this sensation before, and what do you think of the music in Jedi Fallen Order as a whole? I have some other videos I want to do in the future of other parts of the game, but I hope that this was interesting to you. Let me know if I've missed anything in the comments below, and before you go, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to learn more about the music of a galaxy far, far away. And as always, may the be with you.